Greetings. By virtue of your presence watching this video today, I want you to know that we consider you to be an extended member of our family at Unity in Linwood. We believe that you are an individualized expression of that one creative impetus which stands behind all life, and as such we celebrate the uniqueness which you are, and we celebrate our unity with you. We are glad you're with us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We'll just continue with that affirmation. We'll just sing it to the sweetness of our souls. And all that I am, I offer at the altar of love. All that I am, I offer at the altar of love. In sweet surrender, in sweet surrender. And all that I am, I offer at the altar of love. All that I am, I offer at the altar of love. In sweet surrender, in sweet surrender. Sing along now. And all that I am, I offer at the altar of love. Let's hear you. Oh, in sweet surrender. Yes. All that I am, I offer at the altar of love. All that I am, I offer at the altar of love. Yes, in sweet surrender, in sweet surrender. All that I am, I offer at the altar of love. Everybody. Oh, in sweet surrender. Everybody. One more time, in sweet surrender. One more time, in sweet surrender. All right, feels good. Feels good this morning, guys. Wrapped up in here.
So here's a song I've been singing for over 10 years, and it seems to be a medicine song in a way for the transformation that so many of us are going through in so many levels as we go on in life. So if you know it, please sing along, and if you learn, just join in when you can. time when I let go of my fears, inhibitions, and sense of dread. When I give up control and I let you hold me with no resistance in my soul. Now is the time when I let go of my fears, inhibitions, and sense of dread. When I give up control and I let you hold me with no resistance in my soul. This is the day when I throw it all away into the fire of the all-loving one. Oh, now I have just what I need to be free, to feel who I really am. Oh, this is the day when I throw it all away into the fire of the all-loving one. Oh, now I have just what I need to be free, to feel who I really am. Here is the place where I fall into grace and release into the sweetness of your love. I surrender. I remember the light and the beauty that I am. Here is the place where I fall into grace and release into the sweetness of your love. I surrender. I remember the light and the beauty that I am. This is the day when I throw it all away into the fire of the all-loving one. Oh, now I have just what I need to be free, to feel who I really am. Oh, this is the day when I throw it all away into the fire of the all-loving one. Oh, now I have just
just what I need to be free, to feel who I really am.
You'll come see us again, right? I'm thinking that a concert of some sort would be in order. What do you think? Somebody put wheels on my thing. It's going to be a fun morning, I'm telling you. Going to be a fun morning. Might end up in your neighborhood. Look out. Have to learn how to drive it. Thank you. Oh, the author writes, we've been convinced that we need to strive for divine approval to earn our way into the heavenly kingdom. Consider, though, that our striving for spiritual progress discounts the truth of our oneness with the one that is the eternal, irrepressible, immutable all. God is all that, and we are one with God. Therefore, moment by moment, we are capable of being what God is, not by climbing and by crawling. We are God by living, by loving, by giving, by celebrating. What do you think? That's Reverend Linda Martella Whitsett. She is the Vice President of Silent Unity, the acclaimed author of titles such as How to Pray Without Talking to God and Divine Audacity. Marianne Williamson, of course, is coming up at the Edmonds Center for the Arts on the 30th of June, 7 o'clock p.m. Tickets are available through their website. We are the proud producers and hosts of this event. How proud we are to offer two such leading voices in June alone. Linda will be with us for an all-community retreat. There are 20 spots remaining. Registration forms are available in the back, or you may register online. The $99 registration fee includes all catered meals, all materials, plus snacks. For those who want snacks, yes. Oh. It's valued at over $90. It's a Father's Day gift basket filled with delicious items. Please consider having a perusal of it in the spiritual gift shop. Buy your $5 raffle ticket for the father of your choice. Every service has an ambassador. This person's role, yet again, is to support you in your exploration and discovery of this divine, evolving idea we call Unity in Linwood. So if you have a question about who we are, about what we believe, about what we teach, you are welcome to engage her in conversation. Her name is Nan Allen. Will you wave to these kind people, please? Nan. Wow. Getting hoots and hollers, Nan. Practical spirituality. Practical spirituality welcoming community. A mission statement that is short in word, but long in idea. So every week I like to support this with one of the 6 bullet points which we developed in conversation with your Board of Trustees beginning in late 2014. Take a deep breath with me. Let's consider whether this is a position in consciousness, whether this is a spiritual value with which we can align. It reads as follows: we welcome people from all spiritual traditions or from no spiritual tradition whatsoever into every arena of our community. What do you think? You good with that? Yeah, me too. Good morning, Unity in Linwood. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to my favorite day of the week. You know, there are things that we simply don't talk about in church. And if they do get mentioned before church or during hospitality or in the parking lot, they are mentioned in a whisper. You know, I heard she's not really in real estate school. I heard she's in rehab. And if we don't give all addictions the whisper treatment, let's at least acknowledge that certain addictions get more of the whisper treatment than others. I mean, we might jostle with someone about smoking, but we would never jostle with someone about drinking. We might poke fun with someone about his Facebook compulsion, but his online gambling would be reserved for hushed conversations while the kids brush their teeth. And how about this one? You know, I heard his brother is an atheist. Why is it that we are afraid to discuss atheism in church? Maybe it's because our embedded theology spark fears reminiscent of any number of 1970s horror flicks. You know, the ones that usually involve lightning. And why is it always raining in those movies anyway? And a steeple toppling from some Christian church to impale a wayward soul. Or do we consider it disrespectful to discuss atheism in church? That to discuss atheism in church is like going to a dinner party at Conan O'Brien's and talking about NBC's quality programming, or shooting hoops with Larry Bird and talking about Magic Johnson's technique. There are things we just don't talk about in church. I can only imagine that you grew up in a Sunday school program similar to mine. I can only imagine that you learned early on, all dressed up in those pressed plaid shorts, your cute bow tie, hair all plastered to your head with Vitalis. You learned early on that the whisper treatment would be applied to all who expressed doubt of the day's widely held dogma. Why, excuse me, ma'am, I can hear one young boy's voice rising even now, but how can any one religion be the religion? How can God be available only to people of a certain era, a certain geography? And what about all the others? Do they just go to hell? And what about the children who don't know enough to perform the prescribed rituals? Do they just go to hell as well? And if so, where exactly is this hell? And if sin will keep me from heaven, but God will always forgive, then why not party through life, beg for forgiveness during that last hour, and slip through the pearly gates with all the nuns and Girl Scouts? Yeah, that sort of questioning will get you the whisper treatment. Or maybe God is threatened by my questions. Maybe I am intimidating to the great all that is, to the very creative impetus which has stood behind, between, within, through, and as all life since the beginning of time. Maybe God is afraid that I will ask a question for which there is no answer, somehow leaving him or her or whatever looking like a political candidate who has been bested by a student reporter from the local community college. There are things we don't talk about in church. And yet here we are. Welcome to Unity in Linwood. Yeah, baby. Now, from the outset, please know that we are crystal clear on our position. And I quote, because we celebrate, honor, and affirm the divine presence in every person, we welcome you. We welcome your thoughts and ideas, for they add to our discourse. We welcome your gifts and talents, for they add to our resources. We welcome everyone into our community without regard to age, abilities, race, religious beliefs, cultural background, gender, or orientation. Welcome to Unity in Linwood. How beautiful is that? We are crystal clear on our position. You see, we believe that you are spiritual in nature and human in experience. In other words, the highest you began long before you assumed that earthly form, and the highest you will continue long after you relinquish that earthly form. I like to say that each of us has a foot dragging the dust of earth and a hand grasping the infinity of heaven, not sequentially but simultaneously. In other words, each of us has a foot dragging the dust of earth and a hand grasping the infinity of heaven at the same time. It's not that this experience of foot dragging isn't reality. My apologies to our Course in Miracles folk. It's just that this experience of foot dragging isn't the only reality, much less the highest reality. And to be more oriented toward that foot dragging the dust of earth is to define life according to human experience, while to be more oriented toward that hand grasping the eternity of heaven is to define life according to spiritual nature. And while some traditions would have us choose, I don't think we are to relinquish one for the other. I think we are to embrace the full gift of this earthly experience, to hug cherished souls, to taste German coffees, to smell freshly cut grass, to hear seagulls. I think we are to embrace the full gift of this earthly experience while recognizing that there are higher realities than those which can be touched, tasted, smelled, or heard. And isn't that why we meditate? Isn't that why we pray? Isn't that why we serve, why we study? Isn't that why we attend events such as this, to open to higher realities than those which can be touched, tasted, smelled, or heard? And our understanding that as we open to those higher realities, we find our earthly experience enriched. Unity uses the word God to represent not a distant male deity on a cloud who blesses some, who curses others, who could generally benefit from a good mood stabilizer. We use the word God rather to represent life, those eternal currents which are ever pressing themselves into and out of form. Simply look at the beauty beyond these windows, won't you? Look at that. To represent love, not a Hollywood love that gives you everything you think you want with virtually no involvement, commitment, or evolvement on your part whatsoever, but a love that gives of its allness and grants you in every moment the freedom to choose. We use the word God to represent wisdom, that realm of knowingness, that realm of creativity and inspiration in which we find ourselves and each other. And I do hope you get the distinction. I hope you get the distinction because I think it's an important one. In traditional verbiage, one might think of God as alive and loving and wise. We do not. Rather, we offer God as life itself, as love itself, as wisdom itself. And because you cannot exist outside of the allness of the life, love, and wisdom we call God, we would say that ours is to avail ourselves to higher and higher realizations, higher and higher recognitions of the life, love, and wisdom in which we are immersed, from which we sprang. You see, in traditional verbiage, the human creature is like a fish who prays for water. We would say, however, that the better prayer would be the one that wakes the fish up to the realization and recognition of the water in which he lives and moves and has his being. You see, the issue isn't divine givingness. The issue is human receivingness. We tend to think that God needs a bigger hose, when in truth, we just need bigger buckets. And that's the heart of what Unity would call affirmative prayer. So we believe you are spiritual in nature and human in experience. And as we become more oriented toward that foot dragging the dust of earth, in other words, as we become more oriented toward the earthly experience than the spiritual nature, we define life as old and young. We define life as black or white. We define life as male or female, tall or short, Eastern or Western. And yes, as we become more oriented toward that earthly experience than that spiritual nature, we begin to define life as gay or straight. And the problem with this level of reality is that too many fearful humans eventually weaponize old against young, black against white, male against female. Too many fearful humans eventually weaponize gay against straight. But as we become more oriented toward that hand grasping the eternity of heaven, in other words, as we become more oriented toward the spiritual nature than the earthly experience, we begin to define life in broader terms. Labels such as old and young fade in weight. As we come to grasp that the highest self wasn't born, the highest self doesn't die. The highest self has no concept of aging or time or wrinkles around the eyes. The highest self has no attachment to the trinkets over which humanity would do such fierce battle. And labels such as black or white fade in weight as we come to grasp that the highest self has no concept of race or ethnicity. The highest self isn't American or Russian or Chinese, North Korean or South Korean. The highest self couldn't care less about the results from Ancestry.com because the highest self knows that we're all siblings in the same family and that it's a good family. And labels such as male or female, gay or straight. And thank God for these young people who continue to evolve us beyond even this binary thinking. Labels such as male or female, gay or straight fade in weight as we come to grasp that the highest self is genderless soul stuff, growing, developing, unfolding as best as it can through whatever physical form it happens to inhabit at any and every given moment in history. I have to wonder if such thinking isn't what Judaism's most famous rabbi, Christianity's most central avatar, meant when he reminded us that it is truth that shall set us free. I mean, think about it. If his truth was that which could be touched, tasted, if his truth was that which could be smelled or heard, we really wouldn't have needed his reminder now, would we? I mean, that level of reality is really quite easy to navigate. And while scholars seem to universally agree that Jesus had absolutely nothing to say on this topic of gay and God, I would respectfully disagree. I think he was crystal clear on the subject. In referencing the only Bible he knew, and he did know it quite well, in referencing the only Bible he knew, he spoke to issues of age and race, of gender and yes, orientation. When he said this, he said, people, love God and love each other. We're living in a time when a new consciousness is rising. Let's dance. We're living at a time when a new consciousness is rising, pressing each person as to whether he will or she will maintain homophobic prejudices or follow such a dictate to love. And the decision is not both and. The decision is either or. These are mutually exclusive ideas. We are living in a time when a new consciousness is rising, a growing recognition that the only transgression, if we insist upon having a transgression, is that some were born with an orientation which is different from some societal norm, much like being left-handed, much like being red-headed. We're living in a time when a new consciousness is rising, challenging half-interpretations of wisdom teachings, half-interpretations which offer the woman as a secondary creation needing a man, the child as a flawed creation needing a savior, and the homosexual as an ill creation needing a cure. We're living in a time when a new consciousness is rising, slowly quieting the so-called defenders of the clear teachings of the Bible. And in this new consciousness, religion will either mature or it will continue to suffer the sad consequences of its own stale stubbornness. We are living in a time when a new consciousness is rising. And it's in such a consciousness that I envision these very seats supporting thinkers such as Socrates and Aristotle, champions such as Martina Navratilova, Billie Jean King, artists such as Michelangelo, Da Vinci, Warhol, musicians such as Tchaikovsky, Cole Porter, Melissa Etheridge, Elton John, wordsmiths such as Langston Hughes, Lord Byron, Oscar Wilde. It's in such a consciousness that I envision these very seats supporting these souls, not because their earthly orientation matters, but because their spiritual genius does. It's in such a consciousness that I envision these very seats elevated from receptacles of tolerance to thrones of celebration for nothing less than the very life of the divine, overflowing in the creative richness and incredible beauty of its own expression. take a deep breath together. How good it is to be together. Good it is to realize that while I can have any number of experiences, the truth of me is that I am an emanation of life itself. Let's take that together. I am an emanation of life itself. How good it is to recognize that while we can have any number of experiences, lift my eyes into the recognition that I am an emanation of love itself. Let's try that together. I am an emanation of love itself. That while we can have any number of experiences, there's something in us that remembers I am an emanation of wisdom itself. I am an emanation of wisdom itself. While we can have any number of experiences, we get to come together and support each other in that higher recognition, in that higher realization that I am an emanation of divine sufficiency, and I am an emanation of divine sufficiency. How good it is.
All I ask is to serve you. This is my only prayer. All I ask is to serve you. This is my only prayer, now and forever. This is my humble prayer. All I ask is to serve you. This is my humble prayer, now and forever. Now and forever. Now and forever. Now and forever.
Thanks again for joining us. Please visit unityinlinwood.org for a preview of all upcoming classes, services, and events, and for an opportunity to make a gift to our community should you so choose. Thank you.